Two experts in ICF. Decades of experience. One podcast. Two hosts with a lot to say.
Look, I cannot sit through a struggle. I gotta get up and hustle. I gotta push through the pain, cause really that's how you build muscle.
Welcome to the Build with ICF podcast with your hosts, Trevor Brown and Heather Herring Brown. Yep, they're a package deal. With over 20 years of ICF installation experience, Trevor can throw down some expertise on sales, marketing, and training. On the other side of the table sits Heather, aka the Girl Boss, and she's earned the title as the owner of an award-winning ICF construction company, a drafting and design company specializing in ICF. And the numbers? With a master's in accounting, she does that too. Sleeves up, boots on. This is the Build with ICF podcast.
I don't want nothing for free. I'm here to work. Been through the dirt. I've been through the dirt, yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, episode 8.
Episode 8. And I verified it this time. It is actually 8. I guessed on the last one 7, and it was 7, so lucky me, I guess. But no, last one was great. Had our first block company on with Superform. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it. It was very educational about Superform and how they got started and things like that. It's good insight into kind of what their company's about and their block. So it's the first of many. We're hoping to get every block company we can on here. So if you guys have any requests or anything, or know anybody in the business, or if you're in the business and listening to this podcast and you want to get on here, then hit us up, shoot us a DM, or
send us an email, info@buildwithicf.com.
Getting a lot of emails.
We are. It's great.
It's really crazy. Like I said, we have another podcast that we plug every time, the Wreak Havoc podcast. If you want to hear me get a little crazier and a little more explicit, it's a sales, business, and marketing podcast that we do. We've been doing it for about 5 years now, on all the same platforms and everything. And crazy to see the immediate growth of this podcast and the popularity. The activity is 10 times more as far as people reaching out to us every single, we launch on Fridays every weekend. We're returning emails and answering emails are coming in. So really, very impressed, and just a huge amount of downloads. I mean, it's kind of how you obviously register, gauge everything, and our downloads are great. So I'm really excited. But one of the big ones that we are getting asked, and we're just getting a lot of contact, especially via the email and DMs, we're seeing, DIY questions.
Yeah.
Huge amount of people. We know that this industry, been in it for, over 20 years now. And it really did start when I first got into it. It was very much promoted as a DIY product. That was kind of how ICF, was promoted from the beginning. Like, hey, you can do your own foundations, you can do your own basement walls, and it kind of evolved into what you can even do your own above grade walls. And now you can do your own, so there, it just kind of, it went. And then obviously contractors got involved, and it's become more of a contractor product now. But I mean, we still have a huge number of DIY customers. Yeah. So I think we decided this episode would be kind of go over the DIY pitfalls.
Yeah, kind of the do's and don'ts of DIY.
Yeah, the stuff we hear about.
Yeah.
These are things. As a consultant, I do consulting, and we go to the job sites and help DIY people. Figure out, get them trained, I always say we can offer as much or as little help as you want, and we may go out and just do a training and leave. Sometimes they will hire us to come at multiple trips and just say, we'll have you come out at the beginning, middle, and end. And these are kind of some of the things that we've seen. Yep. I mean, when we go out there, and then calls we get from people saying, hey, I tried to do this myself, and these are the problems I had. So kind of like to think that our eyes and ears can basically maybe stop some of these problems that people have been having. I mean, it's something that we've talked about all the time.
Yeah, because it's something that, there's various levels of DIY in building your own home, and people have been building their own homes in some form or fashion, since the beginning of time, and have various forms of involvement. And I think with ICF, people, it's super simple, but you don't want to oversimplify it or make it more difficult than it has to be. So we put together kind of a list of things to start with.
Yeah. And I'm going to move one ahead. We made a list of it, but I do think I'm just going to start since you mentioned the overthinking and underthinking. Mindset is a big part of this, and I've seen both sides of it, and I've seen both sides not work. You have to be kind of in the middle. I've seen people underthink it, where they're just like, oh, these are Legos for big kids, and this is awesome. I used to play with Legos when I was a kid. And there's a lot of truth to that, And I tell people all the time, it's like, that's why I've been in this industry so long, is because to me, it's it's big Legos for big kids, and that's, more my style
that's what
than
makes
brain
it,
surgery.
yeah.
But it makes it really easy. But that also can be deceiving to people when they think, oh, it's going to be really easy, because guess what? You can still make them crooked. They can still be square, out of square, things like that. So we're gonna go over that. But I honestly feel like the biggest thing I've seen over the years in the industry, and this is not just DIY guys. This is your subs. This is your engineers. This is your draftsmen, your GCs. Overthinking is probably the biggest, the biggest opponent to ICF is the overthinking. And I say that all the time. Don't overthink it. And so there's definitely a happy medium. Be a little concerned. Make sure you're learning everything, but don't overthink things. So it's been probably the hardest thing that people try to do. Like, oh, then I got to do it. And you're like, nope, it's just a form. Square is square, whether it's a 2x4 or it's a ICF. A square is still a square. 3, 4, 5 method, whatever you do to figure out your square. A square still has to be square. A wall still has to be level. It still needs to be the right height. The measurements of windows still need to be in the same place. It doesn't change anything. The cutting tools are different, but it literally is the same thing. You still have to know square, level, plumb, all that stuff to make sure that the wall is straight. So don't overthink it. You speak. What's the number one first thing they have to do?
Well, so from my perspective, being a general contractor and also owning a drafting and design company, what we see people do a lot of times is they find a plan online somewhere and they're like, oh, I really like this plan. I can just buy this plan online and then I'm just going to convert. I'm just going to use it for ICF. Totally different. Sometimes you can. I'm not saying you can't, but the biggest thing is our forms are, 11 to 13 inches and wide, and they stay in place versus a 2x6 exterior wall. So the measurements are different. So you don't want to just purchase a plan online that you think is going to be cool and is going to work. You're going to have to do some conversions, and for your permitting and for your inspections the whole way through, you're going to have to convert those to ICF. Yeah,
and depending upon what DIY people that are maybe not done this before don't understand is that's your Bible. Those plans, and don't get me wrong, trust me, I manage the Western 11 states, and I've seen I can tell you some crazy stories from Wyoming to some crazy stories in California on both ends of the spectrum. I've seen stuff in Wyoming where they draw it on a napkin and
there's some places
and they're like, hey, good job, okay, that's good enough. And then there's places in California where you got to have 7 engineers to pass over every little thing you do. I mean, it's you have to submit what kind of toilet paper you're going to put in the bathrooms. I mean, it's just that might be an exaggeration, but it feels like it sometimes. So I mean, there's full sides of it. So the best thing you can do to set yourself on the right path is have a set of plans and stick to them.
Yes.
They're going to walk up to the job site every time, no matter what inspector's there, whether it is your, electrical framing, concrete, foundation, footing, inspection, whatever it is, everything they're going to walk up, they're going to want a set of plans handed to them, and they're going to want to look at them, and they're going to say, okay, and they want it to look like what's on the plan. The minute you start monkeying around with something, you're going to flip a red flag on your job site because they're going to say, oh, he's already, he or she is not doing it the way it says on the plans. Now they just disregard the plans and you're screwed. So make sure that you get the right set of plans. And that may even come down, even if we want to get even more specific, excuse me, you will, even within the ICF plan world, make sure you've made your decision, or try to make your decision on what block you're going to use, because there are different sizes of blocks. And like Superform was on last week, they said, they're a 12-inch block. They're a 12-inch high block. That's pretty rare. Most block companies out there are 16. Some of them are 24.
Yeah.
Or 18. Or there's different sizes of heights of block, which means there's different sizes of lengths of block, and their corner sizes are different. So, a good drafting company is going to adjust that for you. They're going to, if they're familiar with ICF, they're going to ask you what brand, and then they're going to basically put that detail on there so that you know that not only is that going to help you with the inspectors, but it's going to help you with your waste and your cost. So you want to keep, most DIYers are trying to keep the cost down, right? Yeah. It's a budget thing. So if you want to keep the budget down, the best way to do it is use as little amount of block as possible and to maximize every little piece of that block. So by doing that with a good set of plans, you're not cutting the block and wasting it. You're using it and putting windows and doors at the right location that maps out. Maybe your leg on your corners puts it at 1 foot 4 inches. Maybe it's not just a 1, 2, 3, or 4 foot increment. Maybe it's 1 foot 4. I know that some of the brands, that's their length of, so we have to go in a 1 foot 4 increment and then add 4 feet or add 2 feet or whatever increments to make sure that wall lands perfectly and reduces cuts. And
you can do, I mean, don't take this where you have to make it like super simple for, make it look like a bunker and perfectly square. You don't. You can do anything you want. I tell our clients all the time that they're limited by their imagination and their checkbook. And, there are ways to keep costs down, and there are things that you can do, excuse me, that don't cost a lot to give your home character and stuff like that. But, even a step further, what you were talking about, I actually do call, we have a binder on all of our job sites, and it is the Bible. It's the Bible for that job. If it's not in the plans and it's not in the binder, it's probably not going to happen on the job.
Right. So, and the way you do, I mean, to even get more specific, to give a little pro tip, you put a clear plastic tote on every job site that you keep that binder and the plans and anything that an inspector or anybody needs to see, all your permitting and all that goes in that.
Spec sheets, everything is in there because it is the Bible. It is what is going on that job.
And I would even say putting, on an ICF job, putting an install manual for the brand of block that you're using in that. Because
we have found like there's inspectors that come out, and where you're talking about, don't overthink it. We have inspectors that come out that overthink it.
Oh God, really overthink it.
Yeah, they don't understand it or they haven't seen it that much. They've heard about it. And so we've been doing it long enough that now we get phone calls when inspectors see it, when we've built in their jurisdiction, and, they'll be like, oh, hey, I saw this one going up. I heard, I heard it was you. So I just wanted to call and get some more information on this job from you or whatever. It's building that reputation, but really educating your inspector and having that information so they can look it up is imperative.
Yeah, and I'm going to, if we go a little over, I still have to add this story in because I think this says more than anything about inspectors. This was an issue that came up years and years ago, and I've actually used this story with other inspectors and been able to get them to go, oh, okay, I see what you're saying, because of the overthinking. I had a guy one time, and I got a call from a contractor, and it just, luckily enough for me, it was in Boise where I was living at the time, and so and the guy calls, says, hey, there's an inspector here and he's shutting down this job until I give him engineering on the block, on the actual block that we're using. And I said, well, we don't have engineering on the block, like we wouldn't do that. I go, that's not, it's just a form. And he's like, well, he's red tagging us until that happens. I said, hold on. I said, is he there? And he's like, yeah. I go, can I talk to him? Like, let me. So I said, I'm gonna run up there. I said, I can be up there in 20 minutes. And he's like, all right, cool. I'll be here. So I went up to the job site, and we basically sat there. I walked up and I said, okay, just to clarify here, this is a walkout basement job. I said, and they're actually stick framing above this one. It wasn't a full build. And I said, okay, so we're looking at the forms. I said, you want me to produce, as the manufacturer's rep, you want me to produce engineering on our block that shows the engineering on this block? And he says, yeah. So what do you want me to show? He says, well, it's got to have engineering. And I go, okay, so it's an 8-inch monolithic concrete wall with the rebar spaced exactly how it would be on any other concrete wall. I said, so if we pull these down right now and I go and get my wood forms and we bring my wood forms back, are you going to require me to give you engineering on those pieces of plywood that we're using for our wood forms? And he goes, well, no. And I go, why? And he goes, because they're just forms.
Yeah.
I go, and I just kind of looked at him for a minute, and he goes, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I go, yeah, it's an 8-inch monolithic wall. I don't care if I hold it with cereal boxes, as long as I put 8 inches of concrete with rebar spaced on the correct spacing. I can't remember what that one was. It was 24 by 16 or whatever it was. the spacing of the rebar, number 4 rebar, everything was called out by the engineer, was in that wall, no different than any other monolithic concrete solid wall. They had no argument. And sometimes you just have to remind them that, like, hey, this is just a form holding the concrete until it gets hard. We could take all the forms down at the end. And let me backtrack a little bit, because we will probably get into this, and I'm already seeing the comments. There are post and beam ICFs out there, and we will. I'm not sure if we'll have them on here, if they'll talk to what we'll do. They're kind of a different. I'm trying to be good about this, but I'm not a big fan of it. It will change that. So that does not pertain to a what we call a waffle or a post and beam style ICF. There are ICFs that you will see out there that to reduce the concrete, they only have concrete running through them in a post and beam style, and the foam is all the way through. And like I said, I may see if we can get someone on to explain those in a more positive light. I'm not a big fan of them. I've not had good luck with them, and they don't have the same engineering. There's some more engineering hurdles because of the fact that they are not a solid concrete wall. So that my argument doesn't work for those, but when you're using a standard monolithic concrete ICF, then it is. So don't let that get you with the engineers. But I mentioned too putting the installation guide in the deal. Yes, there are installation guides for every brand you use. I am blown away at how many times I go to a DIY job and I ask them, okay, do you have an installation guide here? No, I don't. Did you read the installation guide? I kind of looked it over.
Did you take any of their online training? Because I swear every single ICF
almost every brand
has
offers
training.
it, and they have YouTube channel, and they
or live trainings.
Dude, you can do hours and hours and hours of training for almost every brand out there, and not to even. I've even had some people, because there's some brands that have better information than others. The install process is pretty much the same with everybody. It's going to be very, very similar. You are not going to waste your time watching another brand's installation video and learning as much as you can. The fact that people don't take the time, they're saving all this money by not hiring a general contractor. They're not hiring, and even if they're going to do their own stack and not even hire stackers or anything, they're saving a ton of money. An install can run you, if you do your own install, you could be saving anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 in installation charges, and maybe
but
more on a big house.
If you don't do it right, you're going to cost yourself
Right.
way more than that.
Oh yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So why you wouldn't take a Saturday and just cram a bunch of information, or take a half hour of every couple days and just watch a YouTube video or take an online course. A lot of them you can actually sign up for actual webinars, live webinars where you can ask questions to the trainer, right at your computer. So there's no excuse for you to not be educated on the block you're using and ICF in general, and just have a ton of information. I've on the other side, to their credit, I've walked on the job sites where guys are like, I watched this video, and I saw that they did this, and I was like, oh, that's I don't even do it that way, but that's a pretty good way to do it. If you want to do it that way, that's a good idea. I
think taking the trainings, reading the install manual, I think that's part of the research that you do in picking your block. But that's my opinion. I look at we had a client a few years ago that was doing a DIY. I think it was a shop, wasn't it, behind his house?
Yeah. Okay. No. Yep.
Yeah, doing DIY. So we supplied him with the block. We drop off an install manual along with it. But he's an architect. He's drawn plans. He understands how the ICF works.
He's an engineer. Yeah.
He's an engineer. Okay, sorry. He understands how it all works. And then,
his house was built out. We had supplied the product on his house.
But he had
15 years prior.
Yeah, but he had a general contractor on his house.
Right.
That did it.
But so he felt like, because he watched his house get built 15 years prior, he knew how to do it. Yeah.
So then, but he still hires, you and our crew to come out for the pour.
Correct.
And to put up the alignment and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember the guys going out there and starting to put up the alignment going, wait a minute. We have a web down here at the footer, but we don't have a web on he didn't line up his webs. He was super efficient with his block because he did not line up the piece. But he didn't line up the webs, which created an issue for the alignment system. The pour creates an issue the whole way down the line. And he was somebody that you had worked with in the past, we had supplied block to, but he
underthought it.
Yes.
Because he thought
severely.
he could just figure it. Yeah. And it was one of those things where we told him, I mean, he was a great guy, and he like, we put the alignment up and we go, see how there's a straight line where we attach our alignment with screws to the wall. Well, if there's no web there, we're just screwing into styrofoam. We don't have a way to attach this because it's either touching at the bottom or touching at the top.
Well, and a step further, your studs in a regular build have to line up.
Right.
You know,
and
so
your
you can attach
guy's gonna
sheetrock
hate
and siding.
you. Your siding's going to hate you. Like, I mean, yeah. So like lining up your webs are very important. Make sure they're lined up. I have people all the time, oh, that's not that big a deal. Yeah, it is. But being able to, that's all stuff that comes in the training. It's all stuff that's in the manual. It's in the web, it's on the web. You can look up all this stuff and just download the stuff that you think is pertinent to what you're doing. You can even download the different things for your subcontractors and give them out of the installation manuals.
Which I really do think if you're going to DIY this, whether you're going to hire a stacking crew and you're kind of GCing your own job, or if you're doing, physically doing the labor and then you're hiring other people to come in and fill in where, you can't, electrician, plumbers, HVAC, whatever. I think taking the trainings, reading the install manual, having that information, it's going to help you talk to those subs and educate them, because a lot of times they don't know. So they just throw on a CYA fee just to cover their ass to make sure that they're, covering all their costs because they don't understand it fully. It's not more difficult. You compare it to a basement. If they've framed a basement, the interior walls on a basement, or they've done plumbing and electrical and mechanical, all that stuff in a basement, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, they're definitely the guilty of the overthinking part of it a lot. And I'd say less and less. I mean, when you look at over the years I've been in it, I mean, at the beginning it was like you couldn't find one guy that knew how to work with ICF. Now it's pretty hard to find someone that hasn't worked with it. And sometimes I will warn, on DIY, and there's obviously levels, like you talked about, there's levels of DIY. I think there's kind of 3 levels of DIY. I think you've got the full-blown DIY guy that's going to do everything from beginning to end, and they're, and we've got guys like that. You drop off the product, they don't want any, guidance. They're just like, thanks, see you later. And they work on it. And usually a little slower process, but that's what they're doing. They're just kind of chugging along, working at their own pace and doing as much of it as they can. And that's a true DIY guy. I think the next level is you've got DIY with some consulting, which is what we do a lot of. That's part of our business model is the consultation part. So it's like a DIY guy wants to save. He does, he's not going to hire a stacking crew. He's going to save that $30,000, and he's going to pay us $5,000 to come out and do, help him at the crucial times to just educate and inspect and make sure everything's going to go well. And that kind of gives them still, they're still actively stacking, but they have some oversight from someone that knows what they're doing, whether it's us or another company or another installer. And then you've got somebody that's going to actually kind of general contract it out to multiple subs, and you're going to save, basically what you're saving is the GC fee, which is usually somewhere between 15 and 20% basically is what you're going to save. And you're going to hire a stacking crew to come and stack it for you. You're going to hire, you're going to manage it, the job, and you're going to do that part yourself, but you're going to hire an electrician. You're going to hire a framer to come in and put the trusses on. So there's a lot of that. So there's kind of 3 levels of DIY. And I think that if you're getting into any of the levels where you're going to have subs, you need to make sure that you're working with subs who are, preferably excited to work with ICF, because a lot of the subs that do work with it understand there's a lot of benefits to working with it. Our electrician loves it. It's faster than drilling holes through a stud. You can basically just take an electric chainsaw, which now every brand, Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, they all make a cordless chainsaw now. You take a cordless chainsaw and you just buzz a line anywhere you need to take the wire. No conduit needed, none of that. You just basically push it right into the foam. I know guys do it differently, so I'm sure I'll hear comments about that. But yeah, I've seen guys that take out whole chunks and then put in conduit. Whatever you want to do is fine. The way we do it and have done it for 20 plus years is we just cut the foam and we push the Romex right into there. We hot knife out our boxes, and we basically put our, everything right in the foam. It's super fast, way faster than cutting buzzing holes through studs. Our sheetrockers like it because they don't have to cut back their sheetrock at every joint, because they can just overrun it past, come back 2 inches, whatever it is, screw into the web, butt the next one, and then go. There's solid substrate behind it, so the sheetrock joints aren't going to fail, so you don't have to have a joint on a stud. The joint can be between the studs. Handle it, and that's important, because I do get, probably some of the bigger calls we get is, hey, I just got to phone my electrician. He's going to double my price, or he's just not going to work with it, or he's really complaining about it. He's making it hard. Bounce that guy and go to another guy. Trust me, there's another electrician that loves working with it. There's, and I'm sorry if it's your brother-in-law or whoever it is, another part of our consultation and things that we do in educating, and you can even reach out. A lot of times you can reach out to your block company's territory manager or your rep that you work with.
Your distributor
has a rep that he can go to. The rep can go to his technical department. There's a lot of resources out there, but a lot of times, I spend a lot of times on the phone with subs for people, just saying, hey, let me explain how it's easy. Like, it's not that hard. Let me explain. And then they go, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. Or, oh, I thought I had to do all this work. No. It's pretty easy. So educating the subs is a big part, or making sure at least you're working with subs that want to learn about it or do already know and they're excited about it, because your subs can make it kind of hard on you if they're just bitching the whole time about using this on ICF, because it is different. Like it or not, we're less than 10% of the market. So 90 out of 100 houses these guys do are stick frame.
Yeah.
And so I get it. They're frustrated with this being different. But it doesn't take much digging anymore to find those subs that really like it.
Yeah, well, and as a GC, I'm never going to take on a project that I don't understand the construction method, or I don't understand what is going on with it. So I'll do my research. And, as a DIYer, you've got to do the same thing. You've got to understand the construction method that you're choosing to use so that you can educate, work with, all of your subcontractors.
Yeah, it'll make, again, a little planning, a little bit of preparation is actually going to really, really help the whole process. One
of the things that I love, and it's one of my mentors early on in business said, most people don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan.
Right. Makes total sense.
Yeah. So, okay. The next thing that we talk about, there's so many different options when we come to this, but the alignment system that you need to use when you're stacking up ICF block and why it's important.
I think it is more important for a DIYer to make sure they use the best possible alignment system that they have access to. I understand that there's just some parts of the country and there's places where you may not have we use Plumb Wall, Giraffe is a good one. Hilltop is good. I mean, there's Reachcraft. There's a lot of them. A lot of people use Zont system with wood, a combination wood, Zont, Zuckel system. So there's a lot of different options, and it just depends on where you're located and what your distributor has, and where you can get it. I highly suggest, if you're a DIY customer, that you try to get an alignment system, an actual ICF alignment system. I've seen some jobs where the guys just, they just slap a bunch of wood on it and they whale it into the ground, and they, it's sketchy, or they don't use it at all, and they're just like, oh, it's close enough, good enough, if you ever, there's rarely a time, honestly, that I don't do a job that I'm like, wow, okay, that wall moved a little bit. I'm glad I had that alignment there, and we, a couple twists and turns, or with the Plumb Wall, just to hit it with the impact wrench, and it pushes the wall back straight again, perfectly, fully loaded with concrete. And that's a lot of weight and a lot of work to get those things the way they are. We always say start straight, end straight.
Yes.
If it's something that is if you just get to where you make sure that it's straight now, with your alignment system, it's going to stay straight through the end of it. So, getting that correct alignment system is huge. We're going to have some alignment people on this show, so we will definitely have some guests coming on talking about the alignment system to help you make that decision. If you're a person that maybe wants to purchase some, or you're wondering what the differences are in them, but for now, just to say, utilizing a good alignment system would be huge for DIY guys.
Yeah. And then the next thing is, a lot of people get busy and they're, like, I got to get these forms up. I got to do this. I'm going to pour on this day. And we really want to really let you know, take your time and follow a pre-pour checklist.
Most every brand will have one for you.
Yes.
In their install manual, usually there is a pre-pour checklist, and it's very, very smart to pull that, print it off, have a couple of them there so that you can go back over them, because it's something that, if I don't care how long you've been doing it and how many pours you've done, it's beneficial to you to walk around and have that checklist. I mean, it's something that we do. It's something we have to do. You have to do it because you will miss stuff. I mean, I'm a forgetful person. I'm a man, which just means by nature I'm going to forget stuff. But, even with you looking over my shoulder, we still miss some things from time to time. So that pre-pour checklist is huge. And just taking your time. When I hear take your time, the one thing I would say that I'm even doing more after, years and years of doing this, I'm slowing down more and more. Like, I used to really brag about, like, oh, we can get this done in 2 days. We can get this, set the concrete for Friday. We're going to start on Monday, and I'll have this thing whipped out by Friday, and we'll pour on Friday, inspect on Thursday, pour on Friday. Really got into that. And I don't know if it's just me getting older and slower, but I've just felt way less stress on the jobs if we just hold it back. If we take 2 weeks to do this project, and stack this house and get it poured, we're still way ahead of what they would frame it in, sheathe it in, insulate it. Like, think of all the steps that are coming out when we do that. When we pour that, we're ready for sheetrock and windows, and so we're still weeks ahead of what you would be on a stick frame home if you take 2 weeks to do it. Yeah. And who cares if it makes a better project, which, especially as a DIYer, the stress level is high enough. You do not need to add stress to it by pushing yourself to where you're out there by the headlights of your truck, stacking block at midnight because you've got a pour day the next day, or an inspection the next day. Take your time. Give yourself a lot of slack in there as far as your catch-up days, because the other thing is weather. Yeah. Weather's something that's really hard to predict. I mean, weatherman's the best job in the world. You get to be wrong 90% of the time and still keep your job. But, we've had multiple times where they say, oh, the weather's going to be this way, and it's not. It could be windy, it could be rainy, it could be, lightning. You don't want guys up on scaffold when there's lightning, so you may have to pull your guys down and sit back a day. And so just have that fudge factor in there to make sure that you can adjust, because there's just nothing better than having the job completely dialed and string lines up and everything done, and you're just sitting there waiting for mud. Yeah. It's the days that I've done probably more than I haven't, unfortunately, where you're still scrambling and putting tape on things and scabbing boards and doing alignment system and putting scaffold up and stuff in areas that when the concrete trucks are pulling up.
Well, yeah, when you're scheduling, planning your stack and your pour, you got to call the concrete company, because we do some remote jobs where we've got to schedule concrete 30 days out, and weather, guys getting sick, different things that happen. You have to be ready when you have it scheduled. Otherwise, you're not going to get concrete.
Right.
For
and
a
you
long
may get
time.
bumped, in today's world, you may get bumped back another 2 weeks and delay or more. So make sure that you're, giving yourself enough time that you don't screw up your concrete, your mud schedule either. So all those things, but God, I would say that's probably the thing I've learned the most recently has just been to slow down, quit stressing myself out. The jobs that we, try to squeeze in between a couple jobs, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we can probably get that done in a week. And then at the end of the week, I'm just like, why did we
got
do
it
that?
done. Yeah, we got it done, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, we'll get it done. But it's like you're
stressful.
Opening yourself up to problems, because I've seen jobs where guys are like, that wall's not great, but just leave it. We got mud coming. Well, we'll fix it in framing. Yeah.
Well, we see that a lot in consulting. We see it a lot. And the thing that we really, really, I think more important, in our consulting is you're there, when they start stacking the block for the first couple courses to go down to help them with that. And then you come back for, the pre-pour checklist. Mm-hmm. And that visit right there is probably the most important visit of the whole, the whole thing.
Right.
And then staying there, for the pour or whatever, your third visit is, it's so important to be there for that pre-pour checklist.
Yeah, if you, like I said, start straight, end straight,
Yes.
and at any time that you can stop that. We had a job recently where they were 3 courses up, and it was a 50 by 50 building, and one side was 50'6", and one side was 48'8", or 48'6", or whatever, 49'6", but it was just tweaked, and then the two ends were 50 exactly. It was just, it was in the wrong, So we're trying to bump it back and change it, and it just wasn't. They didn't have it was wrong, right? It was just wrong, and so literally made them take all 3 courses back down and start over. And it was for these guys, it was over half a day's work of them trying to square and chalk lines, new guys. But we redid it, and it was because, and the job turned out great, but it was like 50 is 50.
Yes. 50,
0 inches, 0 inches. This is what each line has to measure. Chalk the line and then start, and then check it again at 3 courses, 2 courses. And it just was, it was one of those eye opener things. Like, you're going to make us take all this down? Yes, because it's not going to be right. You're going to make this thing 16 feet tall, and it's going to be 16 feet tall wrong. And it's real hard to change it once the concrete's in.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna, if it's off now, it's gonna be off at the top.
Yeah.
And so when you start, that's the beautiful thing about ICF. If you start right, it's gonna end right. If you start wrong, it's gonna end wrong.
Yeah. It kind of goes into, having the right tools. And, there's not a lot of tools that are required compared to, stick framing or whatever, but, you've got to have the right tools. And one of the things that I think we see a lot of as well is they don't have the correct tools to consolidate the concrete. They don't think it's necessarily that important if they're, they're just going along and checking the wall and making sure that, they don't have any voids. They don't think they need to consolidate it.
It's literally the most important part.
Yeah.
It's the part that keeps the structure of the house viable. It's the part that keeps it insulated. It's the part that, it's literally the most important thing. So when I see guys and they're like, and again, we're going to get comments, I know, because there are a lot of guys like, we don't do it. We don't, it's not a big deal. We flow our mud at the right consistency. So it does. However it be, just being the biggest thing for DIY guys that I can, the one thing that I will, teach people or show people is the mallet, rubber mallet. You got to have a couple of rubber mallets around, and you basically have somebody who's walking around the bottom of the, behind the guy pouring, basically about 5 feet behind the guy that's pouring. And they're literally just going right up the webs, knocking on the wall with the rubber mallet. That's kind of your first line of defense right there. Very simple, very rudimentary, but it works. Yeah. Because you'll hear thump, 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 thud, thud, thud. You'll hear where it's empty, right? So one, you're telling your guy, and especially on a tall wall, you're communicating to your guy pouring how far up he is, because you don't want him pouring 7-8 feet at a time. You can say, all right, you're 3 feet. We have hand signals that we use basically to show, 2.5, courses, or we go by courses. So we'll say, we show them with fingers because it's loud. Nobody can hear. We'll show the guy, guy that's pouring. I'll look back down, and if you're pounding, you'll throw me a 2 sideways. That means 2.5. If you do a 3, so we're communicating where that mud is. But also, what happens is, especially under windows and anywhere there's somewhere a window door opening, and you've got concrete that needs to flow under it because of the difference in the rebar schedule. Usually around there, 555s and stirrups and things that are required in window lintels and down the sides of windows and under windows. Usually that's where mud gets hung up. So you got to make sure you're getting the vibration done there. So the guy tapping is going to find, he's going to hear thud, thud, thud. He's go, whoa, 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 hold on. We're not getting any mud back here. Way easier to deal with it than to deal with it when you've put mud over the void and now there's mud sitting on top of a void. You got to somehow get mud under it. Not a good situation. So you basically want to do that. And that's where that consolidation comes in. We use the Oztech rebar shaker for a lot of our, for the majority of the wall, we use the rebar shaker. It works really well, gets it down in there. And then we also run a short, just regular pencil vibrator that we run, cordless DeWalt pencil vibrator that we do under window, so we can get into those smaller spaces. And then once we get to the top, we sting it with that. But the deeper, taller walls, we use the Oztech rebar shaker, which has been a great tool for us. We love it.
And we'll have an episode on all about consolidation as well, because there are so many different things that you can use for that.
Yeah. And different levels. Like I said, I got guys that, they run their, they take the blade out of their recip saw and they rattle it from the outside with a recip saw. Windlock has some stuff on their website where they sell the drum shaker. Basically, I call it, I don't know what the technical term is, but it goes on the end of a drill and it's got a weight and it kind of wobbles inside of it, and it just, you press it against the wall and it wobbles it. There's just a lot of different, there's guys that just do the tapping or rodding, as we used to call it, the old fashioned way where you just rod it with a piece of rebar, stab it with rebar, and they call it rodding. And so there a lot of different options to that, but and we can get into that in a separate episode. But definitely a very important part is making sure that the mud is consistently getting, because I don't care how you do it, but the mud needs to be consistently solid the whole way through with zero voids.
Yep. And then I know we've gone a little bit long, but this is kind of the final step in the, DIY pitfalls. And it's, just after the pour. That's when you're checking to make sure, with your alignment system, that all your walls are still straight.
Yeah.
And the after pour checklist.
Right. And you do have, it's not a panicky time because the wall stays pretty fluid for a while. So, I'm not telling you to go to dinner and relax, but, you're not in a frantic, you get the concrete truck out of there, you get everybody kind of out of the way and things are starting to mellow out. You should have, if you do it the way we show you to do it, you're going to have your string lines up around the whole house. So you're already going to have pulled super tight string line around the whole outside. So you're going to be able to walk around pretty quickly and see if your walls moved at all during the pour. Because, you're putting a lot of weight. You've got, depending upon how many guys you got walking around the scaffolding, that can make it move. We've got all kinds of different things that could make that wall alter from the way it was when you started. So you're just going to go around, check everything, and then that's when having the right alignment system is huge. Being able to crank on something and move the wall in or out, to get it on the line is what you need. And then obviously topping off and finishing. If it's your top course and you're putting down a sill plate on top, either wet setting J bolts, or if you're going to tighten them, or what you're going to do, but giving your framers a good flat surface on top is important. Straight, level, flush, getting everything the way it needs to be. And then once you get it there, get the hell out of there, get off the scaffold, walk away, and let that thing start to cure. Because, once it's good, leave it good. You don't want to mess with it after that.
And don't be doing a whole bunch of excavation or backfill or anything like that.
Tell your excavator to wait a week. I know there's just so many people that are in time crunches and they're like, well, my excavator says he won't get close to it, or he won't compact. More times than not, it does. And then you come back and you go, why is this wall off? Well, it was perfect when we left. And now your excavator came in and drove a skid steer around the outside of it, and he pushed dirt up against it and it moved the wall. Even just the vibration of a machine driving around it can shake the wall out of level. So just give yourself a week. Yeah. I know we push it to 4 days sometimes, and I've seen guys pull them next day. There's going to be a lot of comments about that too, and how people do it. And everybody's got a different thing. I am going to just tell you what my experience has been and how I prefer, especially with DIY, is I like to overdo it to make sure that we, we take a little extra time and make sure that give it as good a chance to be perfect as possible. Yep. So give it time. Don't rush your backfill. Don't rush any of that stuff. And
goes back to the take your time.
Take your time. Get your, you can start working on your waterproofing. A lot of times we'll go in and start doing, because you're not putting a lot of pressure, weight, no big equipment around it. But go ahead and get your waterproofing up while you're waiting for it to cure. If you have your alignment on the inside, if it's on the outside, it makes it tough. You can't really do it. But get your waterproofing up. So a lot of times we'll roll in our waterproofing at that point and start spraying. We do the whole system waterproofing,
which we'll go over in another episode.
Yeah, we'll have in an episode. So, we used to do a lot of Suprema. So, but we do, we can get in there with our sprayers and put our Hulk on while we're waiting. But, back to take your time. So I think that's about it. I know we went over a little bit. We tried to keep them to 30 minutes for everybody to make it not super time consuming. We're going to probably be around 45 on this one, but it's important. I think this is one of the biggest questions so far, just 8 episodes in. It's one of the biggest asked things that we're getting is people, DIYers reaching out, asking a lot of questions. So kind of wanted to just go over something for everybody so they could kind of think about that, because I think it helps in the decision-making process. I mean, you may not even know if you want to go ICF, and hopefully this episode, hearing kind of what you're in, if you are thinking about it, that's these are realistic expectations that you need to have about being a DIYer or doing ICF. And if this is good for you, then listen to some of the other episodes, how to choose your block and different things. And, reach out to us with questions. Obviously, we love the emails, love the questions. Try to get to them as fast as we can. We're headed out today. We're actually leaving to drive down to Boise, and then tomorrow morning we'll be flying out to World Concrete.
Yep.
So we'll be coming back with a whole bunch of good information. Going to be doing some interviews and stuff there. We're actually taking the podcast equipment with us. We'll be podcasting down there. So if you are listening, and this will actually this will happen after. Now that I think about it, this one is going to post right after we get back.
Yep.
So sorry you didn't get to come and see us from this episode. If we did see you, it was nice seeing you.
Yes.
It was great to see you at World Concrete. So, but we'll be coming back with a lot of cool stories and interviews that we're going to do down there. So excited for that. But anything else you can think of as we wrap it up?
Not today. Well, just hit us up on our socials. Keep sending in your questions. All of our socials at Build with ICF, and email info@buildwithicf.com.
Yeah, and please share the podcast any way you can. I mean, we don't do anything on this podcast. We don't obviously don't charge for anything. We don't we're not doing sponsorships and stuff right now. It's we're open to it, but really everything for us would mean everything if you'd share the podcast and get this out to people. So if everyone just shares a little bit more, it just gets us some more listeners and some more things that we can really keep working on for you guys. So excited for that. But reach out, share the podcast, follow us, and otherwise we'll see you on episode 9.
Yeah.